what to live for, to live just for oneself, for example, as it's becoming more and more fashionable now. But what is the point of such a life? In my opinion, there is no point in it. You understand that it's supposedly good to get up early, right? But you're living at ease for the most part. And until you have kids, you don't realize that you're living on relaxed. And when children appear, you understand what it truly means to give it your all when you have to work and then feed them and put them to sleep and play, yes, lull them and change diapers if they are small. Financial expenses too, right? If you live as a couple, you can live there without needing much money. Once a child appears, you immediately need twice as much money. One, and if there's a second or third, then even more. Before school age, it's definitely easier to raise kids on an estate. Well, in my opinion, I believe that the perfect place for a small child is simply, well, nature as it is. Now, our youngest is 2 years old and he runs around here barefoot. For the older ones, well, just like that, I don't know, he runs after chickens, feeds them, they eat some berries there, well, why not? It's the perfect environment for him. When they are little, it's just wonderful. You let them out, but keep an eye on them a bit so that when they are infants, that's one thing. You have to be careful so they don't crawl into the pond, a dog doesn't jump on them, or they don't eat something. But by and large, in the open world, they don't go far. Like in the nursery, this world is like home to them. And they live in it, so it is even wonderful to watch this. Great. After all, in the settlement, it is easier because here the environment and atmosphere also leave an impression, and then the nature which the child always interacts with. They acquire healthier habits. They are more relaxed in some ways. That is, they have interaction here. Our little one, he knows the least about what a phone is. Basically, our daughter too. Good habits, right? Run to swim in the river or invite all friends to jump here on the trampoline, go cycling around here where it's safe and here, of course, it's easier because our children are kind of at home, of course. They play. They calmly run outside, they run here to play. They said, we run to visit someone, run to some other desert, or run to another nearby estate. Well, they move around freely. We have a river nearby. They don't go there without asking, right? Or there are ponds at the neighbors. We haven't purchased it yet, and so they need to inform us, yes. So they go with some of the older kids or an adult, or we go with them.
In general, it's easier, of course, to watch over children here. You don't have to worry. In the city, well, you can't even leave a child on the playground, right, to play. It's impossible. That means you definitely have to watch the child be there all the time. So it's much more complicated. In this sense, it's easier here.
And about the child's routine, which used to happen in the city, you always had to accompany them to the playground or something else, so they were always under supervision there. Independence, as a result, was somewhat stifled, right? Not here. And when they get older, it's a different story. That's when the settlement needs development. It needs infrastructure. If until 5 years old, a child can generally stay home, right? Then after that, you need to prepare for school, right? So these school-related questions. When it comes to school, nuances arise. What are the options? Some choose homeschooling, but it doesn't suit everyone. For example, we couldn't handle it. We had this idea, but quickly realized it wouldn't work for us. And many of our neighbors too. They tried, but it also didn't work out. I know examples of those who succeeded. Not bad. These people are really, well, very impressive. Impressive indeed. So we just go to the rural school. In the city, you can find a more interesting school. So we had examples of neighbors who ultimately chose a city school because they placed a great emphasis on the quality of education. In the city, as a rule, there are all sorts of clubs, everything is nearby, and very often, all of it is free. In a regular school, there's a big factor whether your kids get lucky with classmates who might only use vulgar Russian instead of the proper language and communicate in that way, being rude to teachers and behaving accordingly. Unfortunately, this happens. There are examples where kids attend a gymnasium, parents who want their children to receive a good education, meaning they care. So these are usually quite responsive parents ready to...
Some trips were organized for their children. They motivate them to study, and accordingly, the atmosphere in the class is such, more interesting. There are practically no gymnasiums in rural areas. Perhaps maybe in some rural areas of the Krasnodar region where the population is very dense, there they might exist.
Here, of course, all this is developing too. Thanks to the large concentration of settlements nearby, we have such inter-settlement interaction. There are schools, we've tried several options there. You can study at home, you can sort of study there. So of course, the approach is different, not like in regular schools. Tajako, these are Waldorf schools, meaning that they focus more on the creative side of a person, well, and an individual approach. So it's all here, developing, and that's great. Our settlers, they do a lot of things, contribute. Robotics club, a club for computer science programming. So we have people opening such clubs, right? English is not a problem for us at all. There are many people here who may not be professional teachers, but know English well, because mainly people with a higher level of education live in these communities, and many of them know English, and many of them want to and can teach children. So consequently, dealing with English here is not difficult. Of course, there is something here and in the village, in the cultural house, some clubs, yes. So it's possible to take the children there too.
We do not have that. After school, I think it's completely normal for young people to go study. They should, it seems to me, compare this life here in rural areas and in the city in order to make some conscious choice. But that's just my opinion. I think it's even good that they go to study in the city, but they are already growing up and they need this. Or maybe some smaller town where there is a good school, where there is some kind of infrastructure. That's it. And, for example, a settlement is next to such a small town near you. Well, something like that.
I even remember that garden at my grandparents' so well, and I assume, although we are all different, but I assume that for the children, for mine, it also has great value, which will be a good foundation for them in the future, so they can always return here or be here whenever they want. Yes, we are doing something like this, achieving something like pioneers, and it is gradually being felt even now. So there's no need to wait 30 years to appreciate it. And to explore this world specifically, what is created by God, not by man. Grew up as different people. I just remember from my own experience, at the time we had our own farm. That is, even though we lived in an apartment, we had every year we spent in the hayfields. We cared for the animals. Our grandmother kept cows, sheep and chickens. We lived near them all the time. Every time I recall those years, it's with delight, and I consider it the best time of my life. I want my children to grow up in the same atmosphere. Here they are free to roam, play and develop. We don't impose any reclusive lifestyle on the children, of course not. If they want to go to a water park or a cinema, they are welcome to. Besides, all this can be reached in literally an hour so there's no need to spend several days getting there from somewhere and so on. Yeah, it's absolutely not a problem. And there is always something for the children to do. There are many bodies of water, sports facilities, and playgrounds where they are also engaged. So it's absolutely not boring. And now we have a football section running, and soon we will launch martial arts sections. So the kids definitely are not bored. And in the future, we will only develop further. All this is aimed at children because ultimately it is all done for them. They understand that we are working on one big project here. They help with construction in the gardens and with household chores. Well, generally, you don't have this in an apartment. It's all artificial there. Well, again, my understanding. And through action comes education. That is, when it's not just theory in books and so on, but everything in practice. Like the construction is going on, everything is in practice. Right away, there are hammers, nails, a screwdriver, all of this goes through men's hands, the garden, some household tasks and so on through women's hands. Therefore, here it's certainly faster and easier. I think earlier it was written that it's better to raise in an estate, but I think people are being a bit sly. In reality, it's easier here. Because here, now I was working, and Yelise came up to me, started doing something with me. I went somewhere. He went with me and was doing something intuitively. There's no need to make a lot of remarks. Don't go here, don't go there, and most importantly, there's no outside information. All those gadgets, everything else, here, children don't really seem to want them. We understand, yes, that now information is a lot of bad information, but here, the information is good, and children absorb all this goodness, nature, and accordingly, they are raised in a spirit close to the divine. It's much more fun with children. With children, you remember your own childhood, you're interested in playing games with them, you recall being a child, and for that period of playing with them, you become a child yourself. In short, raising children involves much more spiritual development than meditating and all the rest. But meditating is also good as a supplement, so to speak. To show the children what life is like here and what life is like there. Well, let them choose for themselves. We hope they make the right choice. Correct. Supporting.
He looked down at his feet, saw the sky, hills with bonfires, enveloped in gold. Staring into the flames, he whispered her name.